Tottenham are interested in a striker who scored 28 goals in the Bundesliga last season. Meanwhile, Alasdair Gold has given a large update on Spurs' transfer targets for the rest of this summer, and Newcastle have had to pull out of a deal for an England international as the PSR controversy heats up. All this and more on today's episode of Daily Premier League Transfer News. Guys, thank you so much for all your support, for watching and listening. Please do drop this video a like. Press subscribe if you haven't already, and I will get you daily Premier League transfer news, managerial news, and news from further afield as well. Also, you can listen to this as an audio podcast. Just go to wherever you get your podcasts, type in the Spurred On podcast, and also you can become a pro or Patreon member. Just £1 a month really helps me to make this daily content for you. All the details in the description box below. But let's get on with it, with the Premier League transfer news, starting of course at my beloved Tottenham Hotspur. And Ali Gold, like I said, has given a really large update on who Spurs have been scouting, who Tottenham are interested in this summer. And starting with forward talent, we have apparently been looking at Leipzig's 24-year-old Belgian striker Lois Openda, or Lois Openda, I think it is, in fact. He netted 28 goals in 45 matches in the Bundesliga and Champions League last season. Now, I have to say, I'm very excited by this player. Really looks like a kind of option we could bring in terms of having someone who can get in behind, which we haven't been doing nearly enough of this season, or in the past season anyway. I'll talk more about Richarlison later on in the episode, but there's a lot of talk that maybe we will be listening to offers for him, and if that was the case and we got an offer that we wanted to take, then I think Lois Openda could be a genuine possibility. What do I like about this player? Well, he really sniffs out a chance. His positioning is really excellent. He's a good finisher in the air, pretty brave, composed finisher on the floor as well, likes to slot it home, both right foot and left foot finishes as well. So he's not one of those players who maybe a chance comes on his left and he feels he has to bring it to his right foot because he's not confident enough. He just likes to take it early, which is so important in terms of a striker. He makes really good runs in behind, as I said, something that I really feel like we've been missing. And importantly, in terms of Premier League strikers, he's strong enough to hold off defenders when he's in a kind of shoulder-to-shoulder, one-on-one situation as well. He finishes off both feet, like I said, and he has the ability to turn and use both of those feet really quickly in the box to make himself space to create room to finish with. He's also a penalty taker, and he's scored some really important goals for Leipzig this season, so he's pretty clutch. He's not afraid of taking the chances when they come in the big games. So, interesting to see that we're being linked with him. As a lot of you guys have been saying in the comments, you know, Tottenham seemingly being linked with just so many players this summer. Why isn't anything happening so far? Well, for me, it's because as ever, when there is an international tournament going on, it kind of slows down the transfer window. And other than those clubs who are having to make signings before the 30th and are kind of slightly doing it in a corrupt fashion, I'll talk more about that later. I think realistically selling clubs and buying clubs are waiting till these international tournaments are over, or until countries start going out of them, as they're starting to do now, before they really do their business. So I really like the look of Lois Openda. I hope he's someone that we do go in for, and once again, I think it just proves that both Johan Lange and Fabio Paratici's lists are long and deep. So as ever, as we learnt really under Paratici more than anything, if the first target didn't come in, they've got a second and a third target, and be interesting to see where Openda comes in on that. Ali Gold really talked a lot more in his latest video about the targets that Spurs have been in for over the last few windows and who they've had interested in. One of those was, of course, Dusan Vlahovic, Juventus striker, also plays for Serbia. 24 years old now, joined Juventus from Fiorentina, and Paratici is a huge fan of his. Juventus are going to have a new manager next season. I'm not sure if this is one realistically that Tottenham will keep going in for. I think Vlahovic will be too much money, but I do like him as a striker. He can hold the ball up and he is a really brilliant finisher. Also, Ali Gold spoke about how desperate Tottenham are to get the Eberechi Eze deal done. He said they would love to get it done. Now Michael Olise has of course joined Bayern Munich from Crystal Palace. I really do wonder where that leaves the Eze situation. I think simply Tottenham, if they want to talk to him and they want to potentially get him into the club, they're going to have to pay the release clause. It's as simple as that. And I know a lot of you guys get very frustrated. I see a lot of people in the comments very frustrated at Daniel Levy's insistence on negotiating for everything. But I think with this one, if he genuinely wants to get this deal done, and it's really the player that Ange Postecoglou feels is the vital cog to get us playing and get us improving next season, then I think get it done and get it done early, because there is a chance that Eza could, come on off the bench for one of these England games, play well, and then a lot more clubs will be in for him. I don't know, for some reason, I've said it before, I'll say it again, for some reason I have a feeling that Eza will be this summer's James Maddison for Spurs, as in there were clubs in for Maddison last year, Newcastle for one, but Spurs got him over the line, and I've got a feeling that Tottenham will get Eza over the line, but I don't know why. I don't have any direct insight, but obviously listening to Ali Gold, he seems sure that Tottenham are very, very keen to get that one done. Meanwhile, Lille's striker Jonathan David, he's another one who's been on the list for a while now, still on the list. But despite some other reports, Ali Gold says that Feyenoord striker Santiago Jimenez is not believed to be on the list. However, other reports, including one from abroad, said that actually, this was yesterday, that Jimenez was very close to completing a move to Tottenham Hotspur. Sounds to me like that could have been agent talk. Feyenoord apparently receiving bids from both Atletico and Spurs, but that the Spurs bid was higher. I mean, that's a red flag if ever you've heard one. Tottenham to bid higher than another club doesn't seem like it to me. So I think I'll go on what Ali Gold is saying, really. That doesn't look like Jimenez is likely to come to Spurs. Another player who I talked about earlier in the week as a possibility that Tottenham are interested in, Federico Chiesa, the Italian playmaker. I really like him, but apparently we have been priced out of that move as well. Not someone that Tottenham are looking to go for. I mentioned earlier, Richarlison. I have to say, I like Rishi, I really do. I think he's had difficult time with injuries, difficult time with some mental health problems, and I would like us to keep him at the club. I think if we make the right chances for him, he always gets across the front and finishes really well. And of course, there was that magnificent goal at Goodison Park he scored as well, showing that when he cuts in from the left, he really can bend it into the top left-hand corner from that side. But all the talk coming out of Tottenham Hotspur is that because of his injury record, we are willing to listen to offers for him. And I don't know, I'd be disappointed if he left, but it looks like maybe it's a possibility. I don't know who would actually come in realistically, other than maybe Saudi, and pay the money that it would take to get Richarlison out of Tottenham Hotspur at this point, because I'm sure we'd be looking to recoup somewhere near what we paid, which was kind of late 50s. I think something like £58 million. Also, according to Ali Gold, Tottenham now distancing themselves from those links with Ivan Toney. We've been linked with him for a long time now. Obviously, I told you last week that apparently Arsenal had spoken to Ivan Toney earlier in the season, and he'd been his personality was so distasteful for them that they said they're no longer interested in him. And Tottenham now also trying to distance themselves from links to the Brentford and England striker. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. Is that disappointing to you? Would you like Toney to come in and potentially replace Richarlison? Are you disappointed that Santiago Jimenez isn't supposed to be on the list anymore? Let me know. However, despite this kind of slightly negative news of the players who we're no longer apparently interested in, according to Ali Gold, we are planning on getting ideally 1 or 2 deals done before the players return for pre-season training. And believe it or not, that is next week. Tottenham start pre-season training next week. I'm guessing it's at the beginning of July. June has gone so quickly, and of course those players, of which there aren't that many actually, certainly not that many in the Euros, but we do of course have Lo Celso and Romero off at the Copa America, but they will get extra weeks off and probably won't really get back into pre-season training till closer to August, I guess, but next week for the rest of the players. Paris Saint-Germain apparently looking to advance fast on personal terms for Lutzarel Gertruda, who is of course the defender who Tottenham are interested in, and I talked about earlier in the week as a player who would really suit the system, and also his ability to play across the backline would make him an incredible signing for Tottenham. But if PSG are really looking to get him in, then we will not be able to realistically compete with them on a financial basis. They haven't apparently sent a formal proposal to Feyenoord yet. They're also interested in Tapsoba and Yoro, but Gertruda is someone that PSG are looking at. I have to say, if I'm Gertruda at this point, you look at Spurs, you look at the fact that they have a back four who, despite conceding a lot of goals last season, I don't think realistically any of those back four are likely to be ousted from their positions unless it's due to suspension or injury. And also, if you look at the financial possibilities of what you can earn going to PSG, being owned by an oil state, he will definitely be able to earn more wages, than he would at Tottenham Hotspur. So it looks like maybe Gertrude not likely to come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium anytime soon. And one thing that I left off my report yesterday, which came in over the weekend, which was the Jed Spence deal to Genoa, which had been being talked up as getting close to being properly done and over the line. Now it looks like Genoa are kind of pulling out of those talks because Tottenham are trying to get 10 million euros for Jed Spence, and Genoa do not want to pay anywhere near that. I don't think they even want to go to 7 million euros. So that's another one which I think is a little bit disappointing and kind of reeks of the problem that Tottenham have had over the last few seasons. Certainly maybe even the last 7 or 8 seasons. We used to be really good. Under Pochettino, we would sell players on massive profits. If you remember the amount we got for Paulinho, for instance, and the amount we got for Kevin Wimmer, we used to be a really good selling club. But these days, I think since the kind of almost like the financial crisis and a bit further on, Daniel Levy has just been asking for far too much money for players, and these are players we need to get off the books. Potential buying clubs know we need to get them off the books. They know that these players do not suit Ange Postecoglou's system and his philosophy, and therefore they are able to lowball us. And Daniel Levy is too stubborn, and therefore we are left always with players in our squad who we do not want in the squad. And I think this is the time for a cull, and that Ange Postecoglou really has to try and push Daniel Levy and say, look, there's no point having these players in my squad. They're not going to play, and just get whatever you can for them so we can put that into players who we do want and who do have the attributes to play Ange's type of football. Okay, over to some more other Premier League clubs transfer news. Man United are apparently preparing to sanction a deal for Amadou Onana from Everton, which of course is a player Tottenham have been linked with as well. A really good central midfielder playing for Belgium in the European Championships. Barcelona also interested in him, but they are financially in trouble at the moment, so not able to go anywhere near the money that apparently Everton want for him, which is about 55 million euros. Would you like Tottenham to get involved in that bidding war for Onana? Do you like him? And more importantly, maybe, have you seen that clip of him in the mix zone after a game in the Euros where he's talking in his native tongue, and then he's asked a question by an English journalist, and suddenly he just breaks into the most perfect English accent you've ever heard. Very impressive. Sticking at Old Trafford, United are getting close to Joshua Zirkzee's 40 million euro release clause, and he looks like a player who is going to go to Old Trafford this summer. Tottenham were interested in him as well, but it looks like Man United are going to jump ahead of them and get him through the door. Over to Chelsea, they have jumped ahead of Bayern in terms of Mark Guy, and I don't know exactly how to pronounce that, but it's Guiu. Guy, let me know in the comments. Apparently Barcelona also were interested in him, but it looks more likely he's going to go to Chelsea. Arsenal were also interested in him at one point. Sticking at Chelsea, I mentioned Jonathan David from Lille in terms of Spurs being interested earlier in this episode. Chelsea also interested in him. Let's face it, if there is a footballer who is deemed to be talented, especially if he's under the age of 23 or 22, Chelsea will be in for him. And apparently they're talking to the representatives of Jonathan David over a potential summer move. 24 years old, and they're looking to get him on a relatively cheap deal because his contract only runs till 2025. No official bid for David yet, but trying to get the personal terms sorted before going for a bid to Lille. That's according to The Athletic. Meanwhile, as I talked about earlier, this profit and sustainability rules corruption between the clubs, Chelsea, Everton, Aston Villa, potentially Newcastle as well. Well, the next one is Amari Kaliman, this Aston Villa youth player who had a transfer market value of only £850,000. He is moving to Chelsea from Aston Villa for £19 million. Absolutely crazy. There's been some reports over the last couple of days that the Premier League are going to look into some of these deals in terms of making sure that the values are correct. But I think it'll be similar to what's happened with Chelsea, and they're selling their car park to themselves and selling their hotel to themselves and bits of their training ground to themselves. It's getting the most talented, well-paid accountants in the world to work for them to find loopholes, and they are finding these loopholes. In the Premier League, I'm sorry, they're having their pants pulled down, and it's embarrassing them. And chairmen like Daniel Levy, who have been working for this moment so that the fact that they've run their club, he's run the club sustainably. It's now coming back to bite him as he realises those clubs with more money to pay these accountants are finding ways around it. So a player, Kellyman, who's barely played for Aston Villa, I think he's played 6 times, and a lot of those from the subs bench, and his transfer market value is on the website Transfer Market is £850,000, going to Stamford Bridge for £19 million. Absolutely bizarre. Meanwhile, in a similar one, it looked like Newcastle were going to try and get Dominic Calvert-Lewin from Everton for a big kind of 40 million fee, but apparently they've dropped out of the race now. That's off. Another player, Yankuba Minte, is also very unlikely to move from Newcastle to Goodison in the opposite direction. That was a kind of academy player to academy player swap they were looking to do to get that pure profit and sustainability rules profit into their balance sheet, but looks like that is not happening. However, Minte is, it's spelled M-I-N-T-E-A, Minte maybe. Lyon in France are interested in him, but Lyon do not have a lot of money, so I don't think they're going to get anywhere near a £40 million valuation. Yesterday was the deadline for Newcastle's £100 million release clause for their midfielder from Brazil, Bruno Guimaraes. That has been and gone. No club clearly willing to pay £100 million. It was rumoured that Manchester City were going to be in for him, but they didn't go in at £100 million, so you'd assume that now Newcastle would want more money for him, and they're not going to get it, and as a result, it looks very unlikely that Guimaraes will be playing anywhere else other than St James's Park this coming season. Samuel Illing Jr., the Juventus player who is going to Aston Villa as part of the Douglas Luiz swap deal from Juventus, he has undergone his medical and he's signing a contract till June 2029. Also medicals this week for Enzo Berenecchia at Aston Villa, and Douglas Luiz's Juventus medical has been done and he is a Juventus player now. Sticking at Aston Villa, you've got to say under Unai Emery they've done an amazing job and they are looking to get really impressive players through the door. They've joined Chelsea, surprise in the race to sign Hoffenheim's 21-year-old Germany forward Maximilian Bayer. That's according to Sky Sports in Germany. Like I said, if there's a 21-year-old in European or world football, you know that Chelsea will be in for him. It's like they see which players clubs are interested in and then they just try and gazump them all the time. Over to Everton, and Everton actually are surprising me with doing a little bit more business than I expected. Iliman Ndiaye, he is joining Everton already. In fact, that deal, according to Fabrizio Romano, has been done. €18.5 million plus €1.5 million in add-ons. Olympique Marseille have accepted those terms and he apparently only wanted to join Everton. Meanwhile, Everton, another club being linked with that Newcastle player Minte, and they have signed Jack Harrison from Leeds. Obviously he was on loan there last season. They've signed him on another loan and he will be there for another season while Leeds are in the Championship. And according to David Ornstein, who is a journalist that I really like, really respect, they say that Everton still need to make at least one more sale before Sunday to cover their books for this last financial year. Is there ever anyone at Everton that Tottenham could go in for? I wonder. Onana, perhaps. Will they make that sale? Be interesting to see what happens. The Premier League, though, as a result of these kind of slightly corrupt PSR moves between clubs clearly kind of in cahoots with each other. They've warned, apparently, the Premier League have warned clubs that selling players to and from each other in order to comply with financial rules could breach regulations about acting in good faith. That is a Premier League rule that actually has been brought up in terms of that Chelsea selling infrastructure to themselves. There is a good faith rule in the Premier League rule book where any kind of transaction you do, any decision you make has to be done in good faith, as in not be deemed to be kind of cheating the system. And I think some of this could fall foul of that. It just depends on how strong Richard Masters and the Premier League are willing to be as they see that their kind of rules are being embarrassed by accountants at certain clubs. Meanwhile, over in Germany, Serhou Guirassy has decided to leave Stuttgart. He's going to Borussia Dortmund, it looks like, although AC Milan and Arsenal are still in the race. Chelsea, for once, not actually in that race anymore. And some managerial news, Thierry Henry, Arsenal's highest ever scorer, has been backed as a shock contender for the Wales job. And talking about international football, I'm recording this lunchtime on Wednesday, is it? Or Tuesday? No, lunchtime on Tuesday, so I've got my days mixed up. And obviously it is the England-Slovenia game this evening. England now guaranteed a place in the last 16 already. Now, what I would say is you'd think that would give an opportunity for Gareth Southgate to switch around some of his players, maybe get some of those young, hungry, pacey players into the team and give them a chance to show what they can do, because the players who've played in the first 2 games in which he didn't really make any changes before each of those games, they didn't impress. So I would like to see Eze play. I'd like to see Anthony Gordon play. I wouldn't be afraid to see if Jude Bellingham could play as kind of a false 9. He's played there for Real Madrid, and it might get us a little bit more fluidity going forward. Now, obviously, what I'm saying is that would mean Harry Kane not playing, and you shouldn't ever drop Harry Kane. But if there's an opportunity for Harry Kane to get a rest here before the last 16, I think give it to him. He's been unfit. He had a back injury at the end of his Bayern Munich season, and he has looked sluggish, to say the least, in those opening 2 games. So for me, I'd be wanting Southgate to try something a little different. However, I watched his press conference yesterday, and he said, he was asked, is this an opportunity to try something else? And he said, not necessarily, and it seems like he's going to try and use this Slovenia game to get his players to play their way into form. I can see why he'd do that as well, but I don't know. I would rest their legs a little bit, and I think we should still have enough to get at least a draw or a win against Slovenia tonight. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know in the comments what you thought of today's episode, and I will be answering all of your comments, so make sure you write anything in there. Ask me any questions you want. Please do drop this video a like if you haven't already. Press subscribe for daily Premier League transfer news coming into your inbox. Press the bell button to find out when it's coming up, and also please do become a member. Only £1 a month. It really helps me make this content for you. All the details in the description box below. Thank you so much once again for all your support, and have a good rest of your day. Cheers.